Bam! 183 Hobby Hotline. Good evening. It is September 20th, 2022. Rich Klein is here, Uncle Rich, and
Hey there.
Jason Dean Martin. Sorry, Rich, I stepped all over you. So, welcome, gentlemen. How are you? Everybody good?
That's okay. I'm used to being stepped all over. I'm married, and
Uh,
that pretty much guarantees being stepped all over.
and you have two dogs. So,
And I have two dogs. Well, one adores me, the other one steps all over me.
Jason, do you mind me asking where you are right now?
City-wise, I am
Yeah.
in West Springfield, Massachusetts.
There you go.
Last week I was in St. Louis.
All right. Both fine sports
Yeah.
towns. Fine sports towns. So yeah, again, 183. This is a pretty interesting week in the hobby, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. I think Rich mentioned something on Twitter, Facebook, and maybe J-Date about recent passing of a baseball legend. Rich, do you want to talk about that a little bit before
Rory Wills, age 89, first player to steal more than 100 bases in a season in the 20th century, passed on yesterday. And he leaves behind a complicated legacy as a baseball player, a person, a manager, but he definitely was one of the most influential persons in getting the running game going back into baseball, which it did for the next 30 years or so. So he had a big impact on baseball by how often he ran and stole. And, people remember the 1962 season, but he actually stole 94 bases, if I remember, in 1965. And I think he only got caught something like 13 times that year. He actually had a much more efficient year stealing bases and actually had a better year in 65 than the year he's famous for in 62.
Well, the 62 has always been a little. I've always had a problem with him winning the MVP because he led the league in categories such as stolen bases, which is great, but at bats, plate appearances, and games, 165 games. Other than that, I think there were a couple people that were robbed, but that's a different show. I'm on a pro Tommy Davis guy there. And I wanted to talk real quick about the 70s, if you can, Rich. This card to me is probably the first big blunder card for Topps. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember this being the first big boo-boo Topps made or really cared to correct.
It was the biggest error they made after the 74 Washington National Leaguers.
So. Right. Sure.
And they had gone with just very few errors, 75 to 78. There's a few what you would say are just errors or uncorrected errors or whatever term you want to use, but it's pretty minor. There's like no variations in those years. And I mean, occasionally you'll get Lee Richards spelled with an S at the end and occasionally a slight misspelling, but for the most part, those years are really clean. And then in 79, how they put Bump Wills as a Toronto Blue Jay. The uniform clearly says Rangers. He wasn't traded. He wouldn't go for another couple years.
Right.
But there it is as a Blue Jay, but he's wearing a Rangers uniform.
And they did correct it.
And they did correct it.
Which is a interesting mea culpa, right? So we have some people.
And it became a big thing, and it helped the early 80s when 81 Fleer and Donruss came. I think that era helped fuel the 81 era craze, so to speak. And I'm still convinced that Fleer and Donruss did not do most of those errors deliberately or most of those variations deliberately. There were a few they did.
Whoa. You're saying there was contrived
I think
shenanigans in the hobby?
Was much more contrived than Donruss.
That's a whole separate show.
If you look at the Fleer, who did they have these errors on?
Right.
They had it on, people who played in the 80 World Series that everybody recognized, or Reggie Jackson or George Foster. They had a few other people that were just errors, but a lot of their errors were on key players. And don't tell me those were all not planned. I guarantee you, it's 40 years later, we don't have the company history, but I'll guarantee you a couple of them were probably like, hey, let's goose up interest. Look what that did for Topps in 79 and then in 74.
Well, I'm glad the days of manufacturers having, to contrive and drum up business like that is over. That's for sure, right, Jason? What do
Oh,
you think?
sure. I mean, I thought it never, even in this present day, we never have cards that are on checklists or are supposed to be in packs that never show up. Yeah, I don't think that ever happens anymore.
We'll get to it in due time for sure.
Hey, let's say hi to a couple folks there. We have Ziggy chiming in there. Ziggy's, I think Ziggy's in the middle of a heavyweight battle right now, an internet battle with a couple guys from out west. Good luck to you, Ziggy. I'm on your side. Logan's here. Herman, how are you, Herman? Danny's here. Chris Harris is ready to go. Will's never appeared on a Topps card until 1967. That is an awesome.
Well, he
awesome
actually
depth.
does.
He does, but wait.
Not as himself.
You know what's
You'll have
crazy
to,
to me is not being somebody that collect, because I was born in 82. The card that I remember the most for Will's isn't actually a card, and it's the 62 Topps, because they've used it on so many, like, Turn Back the Clocks and archives. Like, that's the one I remember, right? And it's not an actual card.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that's not even the only card in that subset that doesn't exist. There's a 51 Roy Campanella that doesn't exist, and I think there's one or two others in that time frame that don't exist. It's very interesting.
What's interesting about that is they owned Bowman at that point. They could have thrown a Bowman card on there, if they wanted to.
Yeah, but they, remember it took them until 1989 to actually say, we own Bowman. Why don't we use the name? This is 20 years later, and they're still not using the name. That, you're right, John. In retrospect, that would have been really cool, because I was just beginning to collect in those days.
Right.
And it was Topps and Bowman. Yeah. It would have really, I think, goosed up their heritage to have done Bowman in some ways and acknowledge it. So,
yeah, we have.
Remember, it's still a kid's hobby in 1975, even though the adults are starting to infringe.
Right.
And the kids don't want to know about Bowman; they just want to know about Topps. But give Topps credit for doing a throwback group of cards like that.
Yeah, that's a great set. Great subset, that's for sure. Kamikaze Sports Card Hybrid is breaking news. Volpe runs a 4.240. He's the next Ricky Henderson. Good to know. Andrew's here. What's up, Andrew? Hopefully Dean's around as well. Jenny is back in the saddle. Good to see you, Jenny. Bo's here. We have Korea in the house. What's up, Dan? And Carrie Jacobs. Boy, everybody's here. It's awesome. What is that? There we go. Do you know about that one, Rich?
Yeah, I sure do. And he's right. That's a semi-high card. That's like card number 447, if I remember correctly. You can look it up to see how many numbers I'm off. And it's one of the saddest errors, because Ken Hubbs perishes in a plane crash in February of 1964, and the 64 Topps high number card has Ken Hubbs in memoriam. They had already given him 550, which in those days is a sign of a person they thought would be a future superstar or a superstar. And when in Provo, Utah, his plane goes down, and he's like 22 years old, and he had that unlimited future, and it's really sad. And then 2 years later, he shows up on that card. That's the saddest wrong identity on a card I can think of. It does happen. Right. And it happened on, in the 63 Cubs card, I think it's Don Landrum, has a photo of Ron Santo in the inset photo.
There you go.
And the 66 Don Landrum has a problem with his fly, as does the 66 Claude Raymond card. Logan, who collects what he calls his sophomoric set, has all of those in his PSA registry collection.
All right. So speaking of flies, we have a couple flies on the wall. We're going to add them in here. There's 2.5 men coming up here. 2.5 men. John Newman and Mike and Norman Moynihan are here to join us. Good to see you guys. Welcome.
I knew John you would want to see Norman, so
of course, if you can hold him up a little higher to cover your face, that'd be great.
Right.
Your face. There you go. What's up, fellas? What brings you by here?
Morning. Well, I put on all the promo. We're gonna have a special announcement. And I had someone message me that did like fanatics by the show. That is not the case. Okay, even we even better
Not yet.
than that. So I'm going to let Mr. Moynihan do the honors, and then I'll sort of comment after he announces what the special announcement actually is.
Yeah, so I've been being a part of the Hobby Hotline family for a while now. We thought it might be a good idea to try to get this awesome show concept maybe a little bit more in front of more eyeballs so other people can enjoy it. And so we're announcing tonight that the Saturday edition of Hobby Hotline is moving over to Bench Clear Media. It'll now be shown on Bench Clear Media every Saturday morning. It will not be on this channel. The Tuesday show is going to stay right here. The Hobby Hotline brand is not going away by any stretch. And all we're going to do is hopefully expose this show to a lot more viewers and hope other people in the hobby can find it. And we're going to do that by launching the Saturday show. October 1st will be the first Saturday show that will stream live on Bench Clear Media. So if you're not subscribed to Bench Clear, make sure you do so you can make sure you catch all your Hobby Hotline favorites.
Yeah, I can, I think I speak for most. We're excited about it. We were part of 2 Hobby Paloozas on Bench Clear. I thought the shows went well, a lot of great commentary. And like Mike said, maybe more people more people are going to see it. I mean, I don't think that's really up for debate. And, the show, the format, like Mike just mentioned, is going to be the same. Maybe some new faces here and there. We just brought on Danny Black. Want to welcome him. I know he's in the chat room. Great guy who I know personally, and some others in the show know him as well. And the audio podcast is going to be released in the same fashion. The Saturday show will still be on the Facebook and Twitter Hobby Hotline links if that's how you consume it. That won't change. And I, Mike, I think you'll agree. Many people probably already subscribe to Bench Clear. So if you're not yet, now's the time, and that way you don't miss anything. But I got a sneaking suspicion many of already are following or linked up to Bench Clear already too.
Well, we're glad to do this, and it should be a fun little ride here. As long as John Keating's on every show with me, that's all I care about.
As long as Norman's on every show with you.
John, I have to show you. This is your card. Your 1952 Gus Zernial is sitting right here, getting ready to be shipped to you.
Yeah, it's a shame I'm not home right now. I'd be bathing with that thing,
along with lots of Eagles. Just EAG LES.
Isn't this a great hobby? A great hobby with a great history. Look at that. Oh my God.
That's coming to you. So
you're going to send those to Vegas. That's where I want them right now.
Nope. They'll be waiting for you back at home, and a whole bunch of other 58s to complete your set. I was so glad you were to be able to get some cool stuff for you. Here's a Gil Hodges 58. So you've got enough on your hands. You don't want any more business, I guess. I think we actually no, I don't actually.
Okay, never mind. We won't give Mike's information out. Leave him alone. He's done selling cards. He's not a seller.
Too many email. Well, these aren't my cards. They're now John's cards, but we consigned a collection for somebody, and we're selling all the stuff. And we found a way to kind of start really mass getting out a bunch of cards.
The cool part about it is you and I are stuck in baseball and seeing some of those old football cards and some of those rare baseball. That's what this hobby's about, is discovering stuff, whether it's new or old or whatever. There's so much out there. So that's the joy of all that.
I think Rich commented on this card because this whole set, 1961 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
This guy had almost the entire set, and I've never seen them before. And John and I were like, what are these things? We were sitting there one night just
on FaceTime,
FaceTiming and doing some research, and John was helping me. I had a blast that night.
That was fun. Yeah.
So
It's amazing because they look like they were typed up on somebody's typewriter, and
You
totally.
know, of course, they were released in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so you will see them on rare occasions in this area.
right.
Yeah.
As some
amazing.
walked into Kyle's store about 3 months ago.
They're
There's-
four-figure
He
cards.
calls me and says,
Yeah.
"What are these cards?" And I said, "They're really good."
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're scarce for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, thanks for having Hobby Hotline, Mike and Ty. Hopefully you've broken the news to Ty, although there was a teaser a few weeks back, which was awesome on Mike and Ty on the fly or whatever it was. It was
Yeah.
hilarious.
He was like, "You want to announce it?" And I'm like, "No, not yet. Not ready
It's official now. Congratulations to everybody. And hopefully we can all spread the word. So,
Okay. Well,
Awesome.
y'all have a great show. I'll watch the rest of it. Thanks for having us. And
see you October 1st, huh?
yep. See ya
It'll be awesome. Later, Gator.
later.
And well, I'll post up. I'm going to get going too and leave you. I don't know what you guys are going to talk about. It's a pretty quiet, especially on the tops front. But
We're going to look at the the Hobby Hotline SEC filings just to make sure this transaction's on the up and up.
But well, there'll be some promo leading up. We'll post some links and kind of explain what's going on. It's really not, the Saturday show will just be on that network. Tuesday will remain here, and not, just it's gonna be fun, and we'll see what happens. So. All right, guys. I'm gonna get going and have fun. Have fun, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the show as we continue to move forward too. So,
Thank you, John. Congratulations.
all right. Yep, we'll
See you,
see
buddy.
it.
Bye. All right, so that's that. Congratulations to Hobby Hotline. Congratulations to Bench Clear. Hopefully, it's a nice little marriage of content that can suit both parties perfectly well. We'll see what happens. Let's see what else here. We're going to talk about the Topps 2022 Chrome baseball set. Obviously, everybody's talking about it. Everybody has talked about it. Topps released a little bit of a mea culpa. And Rich, what do you think? Let us know.
I think they realize it's a PR nightmare, and they're trying to get ahead of it as best as they can. There's no good way to fix this. So they're trying to do the best they can, which is get those cards into special packs, which hopefully will get to the right people. Some of the big breakers have announced already. I heard Blowout announce that they will make sure the people who, let's say, got the Tigers team cards and Torkelson's in there, that they will get some packs thereof. I would presume something like that would happen. So if you bought the Royals looking for Bobby Witt Jr., or if you bought the Mariners looking for J-Rod, you would get those. But the person who buying the Mets packs, the Mets cards from that, probably shouldn't get a chance at those, because that's not what they were buying the breaks on. But if you bought a hobby box, then you should be able to get the packs. But there's no way in the world you can properly get everything done. And not every store owner would remember everybody who comes in and bought a box either. You would hope so. Some might pay cash. Some might have come in on, one shots just to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so do the best you can, but I guarantee you something's not going to be perfect. But give them a shout out for trying to do something to alleviate what was not a good situation. Jason?
I would like to see more than one way to get these packs. They're saying that you can get them if you bought it off of the website, and then we're all hoping that everything goes well with the breakers. But one thing I did see, and I don't remember where I saw it, but what if I bought that box at a card show? Who's getting that pack? I would have liked to have seen this option plus like a Rapper Redemption or something. Even if customers are double dipping, I'd rather them double dip than miss out. So, that's my thing. And then with Blowout, and then of course Steel City, David Adams, they're all in that in that boat too. I'm wondering, is there any sort of reimbursement for them because they are paying to ship these packs to customers? Are they just out that shipping money, or is there any sort of reimbursement from Topps? And that's probably something we'll never know, but where is that money coming from?
It's a mess for sure, and
Yeah.
it's a mess that there's no easy way out of. And I'm a bit of a skeptic, and I think that this was all thought up in some back room.
And it just goes to show nothing ever changes in this hobby.
Right.
100 years ago, companies like William Patterson up in Canada weren't publishing card number 23. And if it's William Patterson or Willers or whatever, one of those is number 23, Casey Stengel. Well, it was never released in those candies, and you had to get them all together. It was like the Ultimate Chase card, or the 34
33 Galley
106 released in 34.
Yeah.
When collectors complained, where's my number 106?
Moms and dads complained, right? There's a lot of.
Is that the one? Because I was going to ask. Anyways, is that the one that was never printed on purpose so that it was a continual? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and that happened constantly. The 50s situations with some of the numbers not printed are a little different when Topps doesn't print those 4 numbers in like 55 and the 6 and 53, because those cards were involved in the Topps Bowman court battles.
Right.
And they may have thought they had the rights to print those cards, and they didn't.
Sure.
So
yeah.
That's a little bit
different deal.
more understandable. Yeah. That's actually a legal issue.
Is this, and I used to say manufactured scarcity, which it is because there's short prints, but I was corrected by Dr. Jim, and it's supposed to be contrived. Is this whole thing contrived, do we think?
They call it human error. I think you've got to go. If they're calling it human error based on things of circumstances, you've got to at least show them some grace and say, okay, even if it was contrived, you're saying it's human error. You were explaining why it was human error. I think at some point you have to say, let's just show some grace and say, okay, you screwed up. We move on.
So let me ask you a question, Rich. A nice little heat sealed Mylar pack filled box comes off the line, gets shrink wrapped, gets packed into cases. How long does it sit before it gets shipped off to the retail market, do you think? I'm just curious. I don't know anything about the manufacturing end. I'm just curious how long it's sat.
And I'm trying, I don't want to violate any, because it was many years ago and I don't remember, but the place where Panini prints their cards is literally within walking distance. If you're in good enough shape so you could do it, it's within walking distance of the Dallas Card Show. Mm-hmm. It's about 1.5 miles down the road. And we got a tour of that as part of the Dallas, when the industry summit was in Dallas. And by the way, the industry summit, and John will talk about it, is next week. And those cards they print, and then unless there's a delay, they want to get those cards out of the printing press too. They don't want to be holding something. It is an insurance nightmare to hold cards. So they don't want to hold cards in the printing press. They want to pack them, get them done, move on to the next thing. So they really don't want to. They don't want to have a warehouse of boxes sitting around.
The reason I ask that is, at some point, someone discovers a pile of cards. What is it, 500 cards, something like that? Is that what we're talking about in this run? How many short prints are in this run? Do we know?
Right. I think you're right. I think it's 5 of 100 cards.
Somewhere there's 500 cards sitting somewhere. That they're not found in somebody's attic, right? They're either like, where are these cards, and when does somebody realize, is it a guy in a desk? He's got 500 cards sitting there and doesn't realize that the product shipped a month ago or weeks ago. Just curious how that happens.
Well, they have to print those 500 cards separately.
Right.
And if I remember reading it correctly, they weren't even printed.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got.
And if they're not even printed, you can't put them in the packs because they are specials. So they actually have somebody at the printing press who will randomly, every once in a while, just put a card put one of those cards in one of those special packs.
But what I didn't understand,
or one of those cards in the box. So it's not like it's well designed. So they weren't even printed. So nobody's holding 500 cards. They're not there.
So now they're doing, it's a 2-card pack, correct?
Yes.
that they're sending, and these are randomly inserted. So I'm wondering what. Let's say you get a pack that has one of these guys. What's the other card? Is it from the set? Is it another
Filler, right?
Yeah, like what's the other card?
I'm guessing, but it could be anything. They have not made an announcement about that. So we don't know. Logically, it would tell you that it's going to be a card from the set,
Right.
but we don't know until they tell you or until you see the packs.
So this is a big operation, right? And I know you said we should show them some grace, but they've been in business a long time. And especially with the spotlight on the hobby, the way it's been the last couple of years, it really is it's a huge mistake. And I just find it difficult, the quality control. I mean, we know about quality control from back in the day. It was horrible. It just seems like that shouldn't happen. And I hate to sound like somebody's head should roll for that. I know we're talking about people trying to make a living, but the more we let people fall upward in life, the more the rest of us go down the chute. So we can't just let it go, Rich, because too many of these things happen in the hobby. Whether it's
whose head would you roll?
who's in charge of quality control.
Printed, do you get rid of somebody at the printing press who may not have ever gotten the information from Topps about, hey, you need to print these cards?
So who let me ask you a question. Again, this is complete naivety on my part, but is a printing person, a printing press employee putting those cards in, or is it, and I'm just drawing the correlation between.
It is a printing press employee, just like when you have a relic or an autograph card that goes into a box.
Right.
It is a printing press employee, and usually somebody who doesn't even know about the hobby.
Gotcha. Because it's the same thing with signatures, right?
Don't want people who know about cards in the hobby to be the ones putting in those cards, because they don't want any chance of impropriety.
Yeah, sure. I got you. That makes sense. I'm just trying to think, like, we have problems with autographs, right? And it's supposed to be, in theory, witnessed by a representative, or at least that's the myth, that it's witnessed by a representative of the card company or whatnot. So if it's I know if someone wants to watch a great documentary, watch McMillions, right? I think that's what it is, where the gentleman who was in charge of putting the winning pieces into the Monopoly games at McDonald's ended up selling them to his friends.
That's a very good reference. I think that would be wise of people, because it also shows the links that they went to protect that contest, and they still got
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And I'm not accusing, well, I mean, people, there's timelines, right? I do stuff that I don't think is very complicated, but it is logistically, I guess. A lot of pieces have to fall into place, and you have to make sure, like, there has to be a sign off. Yep, we printed those. Yep, we inserted those. Is it that lax the whole process, we think, or checks and balances, right? There should be two people in charge of that stuff, so that if one screws up, the other one notices. So again, maybe I'm naive, Rich, but I think that, like, we need to, and we're not talking about, like, this isn't life-threatening stuff. I understand that. It's kind of humorous once I step back and think about it. We're talking about baseball cards. So.
I grew up in New York, and the number one radio station when I was growing up was WABC. And Rick Sklar, the program director, wrote a book, and it was a small paperback book. But he talks about one day WABC got knocked off the air for like 15 minutes. And he went through with the engineer, and they found it was 11 things that had to all go wrong simultaneously, or in a certain pattern, to knock them off the air. And that's exactly what happened. And despite all their foolproof ways to keep it on the air, they still went off the air.
Mistakes
happen.
3 Mile Island
went off the air. They didn't want to go off the air. The worst thing, you've worked in radio or something equivalent. The worst thing on the radio is dead air.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about 3 Mile Island, the same thing, chain reaction of every bad thing happening at once. Bam. We're talking about cards, right? For crying out loud. So let me ask you a question. this seems to inflame or flare up more in baseball than it does in the other sports for some reason. Is this the rookie card phenomenon? Is this the I assume there's SPs in the other sports, right? Like it just seems like baseball. Maybe it's because there's more eyes on it, but seems like it happens more in baseball than anything.
Maybe that's because of the company involved in baseball more so. Maybe
It's true.
it's the common denominator there. Maybe it's not that it's baseball, maybe it's the manufacturer. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying the obvious first.
Yeah. The ones that have been doing it the longest, Jason, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right. Got a great comment from Rob Chaunier. Wow, this is super boring. So if you got here, Rob, I don't know how far you've fallen into the pit of despair that you found us, but appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Bo does tell us it's a call-in show, and we'd love to have you, Rob. I think I put the link in there. Maybe I didn't. Let's see if I do. There we go. Thanks for the reminder, Bo. Rob, we'd love to have you online here, on air, live. It would be awesome. So speaking of other sports, what's going on in football here? It seems like some of these has-beens, these castaways are starting to make some noise in the hobby, maybe, or at least in sport, right? What do we think about the NFL season thus far?
Jason?
It's strange because there's a couple things like, let's say, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen that we totally expected. And then there's things like the Miami Dolphins that I don't think a lot of people saw happening. I was one of the guys that pulled some good Tua cards a couple of years ago and sold them because I never saw it happening for him.
Right.
And now I'm going back and checking, like, how bad did I mess up? You know what I mean? So he's got that hot start helping him, but I haven't seen a huge increase in stuff yet because I'm wondering if there are still skeptics. And like Logan just pointed out, the Bengals, Joe Burrow is somebody that's not performing as well as, I think we thought was going to be a repeat season for him. So there's definitely some surprises and some normalcies happening right now.
And I think you're absolutely right. We are only 2 weeks into the season. You start seeing trends, but
Yep.
2 weeks is 1/9 of the season, 11%.
Yeah, and that's where it's hard. That's where it's very hard.
And so, I mean, Daniel Jones is 2-0 as the Giants quarterback. And as a Giants fan, I'd love to see the your Jalen Hurts is off to a good start. So we'll give the Eagles some props too.
Two easiest schedules in the NFL, Giants and the Eagles. So keep that in mind.
But if you're off to a good start, it can give your team confidence. It can give you confidence.
Yeah.
So there is a lot to be said to how things go. Cooper Rush has now 2-0 as an NFL starter. One really good game in Minnesota last year, and he was very satisfactory in, that final drive. So the Cowboys beat the Bungles.
Are you saying you're off the Dak Prescott bandwagon, Rich Klein?
I was never on it as much as some people, but there is, I don't want to say humorous because that's the wrong word, but Dak, the day after Dak had been scheduled to do a signing session the Monday after game number 1.
Yeah.
Needless to say, that signing session never took place.
He didn't break his hand. He did break his hand, didn't he?
He did. He broke his thumb.
Hey, so, I mean, one thing to consider here is a guy like Cooper Rush. It's wonderful to come in. It's like baseball players, right? Once they've been around, pitched around the lineup, things change. So it's the same thing with quarterbacks. Like a guy like that could come in and have a great game. Gardner Minshew's another one, right? That's not how you build a career. But with that said, this hobby doesn't seem to be built on careers anymore. So, maybe it's kickstarting, football, or have football cards been going strong here for a couple of weeks, and I'm the only one sleeping on. Although I did buy some fine 1960 Topps football cards this weekend. Is is football on fire right now in the hobby? I don't know.
Football
To
is
me, it's
always
tough.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but remember Panini's got to try to catch up. Have they finally finished all their 2021 cards? And I'm seriously asking,
Right.
because they were still doing 2021 cards a month or so ago. You've got to start getting those 2022s out there to have an impact if you have a good rookie this year.
Right. So I think we all agree that maybe 2023, the product will be a little bit different, perhaps, at least the release, because the second biggest news in the hobby after the hobby hotline bench clear joining will be the confirmed that there are rumors of Fanatics buying Panini. So good luck with that. I assume that Panini name is going to go away because nobody's really married to that, are they?
Well, remember the rumors also only for Panini America, not for
Yeah,
Panini.
but I mean that's what I'm saying in America, because I'm familiar with the Panini worldwide thing, being a soccer dork, but I'm just curious: is the Panini America name or card, football, basketball, baseball cards, Panini? Does it really matter, or are we looking at Donruss and Diamond Kings and stuff like that sticks around only?
I think some of the brands, if Fanatics buys Panini, I think keeping a few of the brand names might make sense. Prism has become such a base brand important name. I think you keep something with Prism. You might keep a Diamond King or a Gridiron King, and you might keep some of those brand names just that have really gotten hobby love at this point.
Yeah, I don't see Panini as a name staying. I see the brands, the Absolute, the Donruss. I see that stuff staying. And actually, to me, that carries more weight than Panini does. To me, Panini is still stickers. As far as, from the American standpoint, it's still stickers to me. So,
Yeah. Let me ask another question here. As a homie who grew up in the 70s and 80s, what would it take to wrest the Fleer name away from Upper Deck? And do you think that would happen? Would Fanatics be that hard up, not hard up, but have an infatuation with completing the set, as they say, and go after that name, Rich?
I'm not sure. I think you leave Upper Deck alone. I think you just leave it alone.
But I'm just talking that brand. I'm just talking about that brand.
I know, but
what I mean?
they're your quote competition.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, if it becomes too much of a monopoly, you might start getting regulators knocking on your door. So you just leave the sleeping dog alone. You leave Norman alone, and you just let Upper Deck have what Upper Deck has. I think your better play is to try to get some of the athletes Upper Deck has had exclusives with that they can't print professional cards of.
Yeah.
People like LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and get them signed. And then if you can do that, then that's more of a fair game play than worrying about a brand name.
Me personally, I would leave Fleer alone. Let Upper Deck do their thing and go back to some of the other names that have kind of gone by the wayside and trademarks have expired, and try to capture those. A year or so ago, maybe Wild Card would have been one that, was on the table for the taking, or something like that. Something that has, some novelty, nostalgia to it, but hasn't been around for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some things that I'm glad went away, like school.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be neat to see. I don't know. Like I said, I was in the 80s. I was buying all that stuff. So I'd still like to see Fleer baseball cards again. But we've got a burning question from Pennsylvania. Rich, this is for you. Andrew needs to know this answer.
I don't remember the 86 Donruss. So I actually gonna look it up because I don't remember what's so special about that card. So please, I'm gonna be honest. Please fill me in.
Come on, Andrew. There's the link, man. Click the link. Get on here. You can educate Uncle Rich. So, is anybody looking forward to basketball? I mean, don't these here training camps open up in a couple weeks? Am I wrong in assuming that? I spoke to a basketball fan today, a colleague of mine who was completely enthusiastic about the upcoming season because there seems to be something in basketball that maybe there isn't in the other sports, and that's parity. He seems to think there's a lot of parity. So, any thrill about the upcoming NBA season, or we still have to? The honeymoon's not over for football. What you're thinking?
No, but hockey. I know the hockey training camps begin like today.
Yeah, boy, it's 98 degrees out there, man.
It's going to be 100 in Texas on Thursday.
Jason, what about you? Are you a hockey guy or a basketball guy? I know you're a NASCAR guy as well, but what are you looking at? Right now?
I am baseball, wrestling, and NASCAR. I'm, I just turned 40 this year, and 90s basketball is way more entertaining to me than, the new stuff in that regard. And hockey, I've never been. I'm from West Virginia, so hockey is non-existent for the most part. So, no hockey for me. I'll pick up the pack every once in a while, but nothing crazy.
So you like stuntman cards, you like NASCAR cards, and you like baseball cards.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Rich, tell us about those empty boxes back there.
They're just empty boxes. They are donations for upcoming synagogue shows that we are running. We did have our last synagogue show over Labor Day weekend, and we did, for the first time in many years, we did not give away any cards at the door because I really didn't have any cards to give away at the door. Okay. So I have been blessed by having people who are still giving us cards, and I transfer them to either 3,200s or 5,000s, and those are just empty two-row boxes. So we used to laugh about all the cards in the office and worry about them fall on me. Well, if those boxes fall on me, it's no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul.
Gotcha. All right, let's look at this if you don't mind here. Industry Summit's coming up, right? I assume none of us three are going to attend, although I will be in town. This thing seems to be creeping up on everybody this year. Is it, I haven't heard a lot of buzz about it. Do we know why?
I feel the same way as you. I kept thinking it was farther away, for one. And I think for me, a lot of the ads I've seen have just been the generic, like the logo and stuff with not a lot of information into it. Plus for me, I'm on the East Coast. This is a trek,
right,
to get there. So
is there anything to be learned from this show? I know it's a gathering of the tribes, but
I went once when it was in Dallas. It was it was a mix of schmoozing and learning, and you can learn things if you want. Most of the people who will be attending this are people who can afford to go. Usually, if you can afford to go to a confab like this, it means you're doing pretty well in your business.
Right. Says it's sold out.
The ones that need the most help, unfortunately, are the ones that can't usually afford to go to something like this.
Yeah, true story.
And on top of it, and this is done, and I know the people who are running it, and several of them I used to work with. But I think for the newer collectors out there, the Mint Collective way of doing it is something more in tune with the more 2022 collector base than an industry summit.
Is it true that the mothership just called you moments ago? Is that
yes?
All right, you better watch what you say then. Careful.
But I'm just saying that this is a useful thing, but if it depends what your purpose in it is attending. Like if I were 30 years younger and wanted a job in the hobby, I'd rather go to the Mint Collective than the industry summit.
So why? Are you learning more at the Mint Collective, or are you schmoozing with bigger players at the Mint Collective?
You're schmoozing with. I'm also making myself 30 years younger and technologically savvy.
Right.
We have, some of my coworkers at ComC, which is to a large extent a tech company, say you're the least tech person to ever work for a tech company.
Right.
So I would be more technologically savvy, and going to a mint collective is more tech savvy position than going to the industry summit. Industry summit, for like what I do at a Dallas card show, for talking to people, is a better fit on that level.
The Mint does have a card show. They have one here as well. They've changed locations.
There is a card show involved with the industry summit. So if you're still in town, you can go to that pretty freely.
I will. I'll probably go to that and slap Pelican cases out of people's hands and stuff like that. It's at Harrah's this year. Last year it was at Hilton property. I forget what it is, but anyway, it's at Harrah's. When is the Mint? The Mint, I assume, is in February, right? And I assume that's in Vegas again.
I would assume so, and I assume it'll be in March again.
Okay. February, March. Okay. Refractor Jones says he is going to be here. He or she, my apologies. Last year's show was small. Hoped this year the hall will be bigger with more vendors. And Refractor Jones is also telling us that the Mint Collective will also be bigger than last year. Of course, the Refractor Jones, I don't know whether that's your birth name, but obviously you're probably into refractors. So it appeals to you. Logan tells us that the Mint Collective is a Borg splinter group, and Refractor Jones is indeed a he. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So we have our answer to our question from Andrew there in Pennsylvania. The location of the Angels logo, Rich, on the Bobby Rich card.
It just looks like a funny location, which is why he's talking about.
Gotcha. Truth be told, my 86 Don Ross set probably hasn't been looked at since 86. It's a hand collated set, but I wouldn't be able to point out the 86 Rich card myself. So what else we got, fellas? What's on our mind?
I'm going to go in a weird direction. When we started the show opening, and we were talking just before, and then you took us all off the air and we showed the thing. I had a flashback to one of my holy grail items, something I've never gotten in my life, something I've never seen in my life, but I've been told it exists. Back in the day, I used to collect stuff from Columbia, where I went to college, Columbia University in the city of New York, that wonderful institution that decided to cheat on the U.S. News and World Report's rankings and slipped from number 2 to number 18 this year. Good job, guys.
What led to that? What do you think happened there?
Make me proud. But apparently, Chet 40, and the reason I was saying that is that when we started watching Monday Night Football, the thing was they would have these scenes with Chet 40, doing the direction before the game begins. Apparently, there's some promo cards of Chet 40 from when he was hosting a daily sports radio station back in the day. Those promo cards where they do them. And that's like a holy grail for me. I've never seen or heard of one. And I've been told by somebody they do exist, and he never got it for me. And I saw that and I had a flashback to, that's something I've always wanted to get.
Chet Forte. I call it Chet Forte, but you call him Chet
Forte.
Yeah. And that's a real issued card, or is that a promo? I was told
by somebody who knows that's a real issued radio station promo card. The radio, how radio stations would do cards of their, not a 2.5 by 3.5, but they're usually a little bit oversized.
Headshots, probably, right?
But I was told that that's a real item.
Gotcha. So, Jason, you're out on the road there.
Yep.
In the great wide open. I think I may have asked you from the chat before. How often do you try to get out there to the local card scene?
So it depends on how I travel. I either travel 5 or 10 days at a time. So obviously, if 10 days, I'm there for the weekend. Weekends, definitely. But if I do a 5-day trip, it's hit or miss. I try to go close, but I also I collect toys too. Okay. So I also do that. And then it's just trying to divide my time. If I want to drive 10 minutes or an hour and all that. But definitely
card shops or shows. I mean, is one appeal to you more? Flea markets, whatever?
I'm a show guy because I feel like I can get better prices on
Uh-huh.
stuff. Dime boxes, quarter boxes, that sort of thing. My guys that I collect are always commons for the most part, it seems like. So those boxes appeal to me. I go into a couple card stores when I can, but I'm not somebody that's going to put down 50, 60 for a card without a lot of decision making.
Yeah.
So if I can go to a show, get 1,000 cards for $50, I'm way more into that than one.
So you walk into a show, is your mind divided three ways? Baseball, wrestling, NASCAR, or do you have what you prioritize one into a show or a shop? You got three eyes, you have one eye. What's your deal?
Probably more than that, more
Okay.
than three. It's that thing, I have sets that I'm looking for, and then I collect the Topps 206 stuff. So I might go to one show and somebody has a bunch, and go to 5 shows after that and nobody has it. So it just kind of depends.
What year was that? 2020 or was that?
I do actually the 2002s more so. So
how many of the buybacks cards have you ever bought?
Probably like 1 or 2. Not many, because they come in that little frame, and I'm still 20 years later, I'm still undecided if I'm a fan of that or not. I'm probably in the minority. I like the buybacks with the stamp in the card because it tells me that it came from, whatever 2018 Topps, like the Rediscover stuff or whatever year that was. It tells me it came from there, even though some people say it ruins the card. I like knowing that it came from, that.
Well, I'm personally glad they do those stamps. I remember, like in 1991 or 92.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
And they put cards into the back. They put, buyback cards. They were really tough. Remember, they're producing so many cards in those days that it's not even a case hit. It's like 1 in 3 cases.
Yeah.
To get a card. And I had a friend of mine get an 89 common out of it. And the problem was there was no stamping on it.
Right.
Where
so
do you
it was
go
just
when you get the 89 common and there's no stamping on it? It's like, how do you know that's a special card? Because there's no way to make it worth more than the 2 cents it is at the time.
Yeah, 2 cents. Oof. Be lucky if you get a half a cent for one of those now, right? So, hey, I got a question. What's going on, Rich? It sounds like there's a catering hall next to you.
No, actually, it's the cleaning.
Cleaners? Usually we see them pop in and you hand the trash can to somebody.
I have the trash. I try to do it subtly, but they caught that.
So I've got a question for each one of you. We have about 6 minutes left here. Your favorite, and this isn't the hobby's favorite, but Jason, what's your favorite sports card of all time? Whether you own it, whether you don't own it. Rich, you've got time to think about this. Jason's on the hot seat right now.
I have 2 answers.
All right.
2011 Bowman draft paper, Brandon Nimmo. I have currently about 450 of them that I've just accumulated, and then now it's in my system. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But as far as nostalgia, memories, all that, 1990 Topps Griffey Jr.
Oh,
for me, my set, and I'm like dying for Heritage to get to 1990. That's my set. I was 8 years old. So 1990 for me is like the year. 90 Upper Deck and 90 Topps. So that's 1990 Topps Griffey Jr.
Have you done the math for when they're going to get to 1990?
I did once upon a time, and I think I still got about 14 years or something like that. So
good luck to you, man. I think it's more like 16 or 17. Good luck. Rich, give us an answer. What do you think the greatest sports card of all time is?
I've written about this, so the answer has actually been publicized. And I just want to say it's one of my favorite cards, just because the design of the card struck me as interesting, and it just struck me as a beautiful card. And I can't stand the team. And he was a scrub. He was a backup player. He had 1 moment of glory, I believe, in Game 6 of the famed Celtics Phoenix Suns series in 1975, when everybody's fouling out, and he has a great game. I believe it's the 75-76 Topps Glenn McDonald basketball card.
That's
So if you
awesome.
want to go searching for a card that I just love the design of,
Right.
go find that card.
That's awesome.
And it's just, and it's not like it, and there's no rarity about it. There's no scarcity about it. It just struck me as the most beautiful card I had ever seen.
Right.
And I still don't know why. And
Well, did you know the story before the card, or you told us the story about this?
no, I knew I watched the game.
Okay.
I watched the game on TV. I remember. I know the game before the card, and then I
are they tied to each other? Do you think your
they may be,
admiration for that
but
card?
if it's really tied to each other,
Subliminal.
I would probably rather get a 67 or a 68 card. When I first started following sports,
Right.
That's what's so interesting is that the 68 to 72 period where, let's just say, my life revolved around sports. I would think that would be a time where those cards, would do it, but on a different level. And I don't have it anymore, and I need to get one just to keep those memories going. I remember walking into the office of our local gas station, and he had put a thumbtack on the wall of a card because he's a little bit of a collector. And I had started collecting the 3rd series. And even then I knew what I'd never seen before. And he had the 1968 Topps Tommy John first series card.
Oh.
And I had never seen that card. And I literally reacted. And the guy, he gave it to me. God bless him.
Oh, that's nice.
And I kept that card, I think, until I moved to Texas. And then I don't know what happened to it. I need to buy one just to have the memory again.
And that wasn't so. It was 1990, I guess.
Think about, hey, I've never seen this before. This is interesting.
That was 1990, right? Somewhere around there.
Well, no, 1968 Tommy John.
No, I'm saying when you moved to. Is that when you got?
And I've owned other copies of the card.
Okay.
But, the one that he gave me with the thumbtack is when.
I got you. That's awesome, man. That's what it's all about, though, right? It's about those cards and the memories they bring up. And each one of you, while you were saying that, had a smile on your face and a smile in your eye, which is great. I don't know who Mr. Nimmo is. Is it Brandon? Brad?
Yeah,
Nimmo?
plays for the Mets. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Rich may have known that, but Rich knows.
I did.
You can't ask us the question and not answer it yourself.
Well, everybody knows that answer.
Wow.
Most people know that answer. Anybody in the chat know the answer? What my favorite baseball card of all time is? We'll see. I doubt it. Nobody's left in there. It has to be for the same reasons, right? It's not about their prowess on the field or whatnot.
We got to guess.
Yeah, he's wrong. He's way wrong. It would have to be the 19. Yeah, there you go. Andrew got it right there. The 75 Herb Washington. There's 2 of them. Like you have, I have 2 answers. It's the 75 Herb Washington. It's the 75 Herb Washington Mini. So
there's actually 3.
Is there a OPG, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, I forgot. I got to get that one. 60 as is nice for sure. So that's it. We're up against the hour, as they say in the radio. Rich, where can we find you other than your office?
I occasionally Twitter on Uncle Rich. You can find me on Facebook. I usually talk about 60s and 70s music on Facebook. I talk about music more than I do about cards because it's a fun topic for me.
Right.
Talking about things from my youth. I got a lot of Facebook reaction the other day when Jim Post, who was a friend and lover, along with his late wife Kathy Post, and it was a one-hit wonder called "Reach Out in the Darkness." And the story goes that during one of those feedbacks, they don't go reach out, they go freak out in the darkness.
Okay.
And it was just a very catchy hit. Got number 10 national, but number 1 in New York.
There you go.
And I got a lot of feedback on my Facebook page when I posted that. So I actually don't post much about baseball cards. I post more about music.
Goppy, Jason, are you a Hilton Diamond member?
I am a Holiday Inn.
Oh, IHG.
Oh, so
okay.
You're one of those.
Hilton, I'm just gold. I'll be diamond probably in a couple of weeks though.
Gold Jason, with a bullet.
Yeah. Are you going to the Basketball Hall of Fame, or have you been there already?
Probably Thursday.
Nice.
I should get done early. Hey, I think it's Andrew, the 1992 Stadium Club Lonnie Smith. An excellent card. I also have a signed version because I love that card so much.
That's awesome.
That's the famous running into the catcher from the World Series. So
Love it. Love
good
it.
And
card.
in those days, Stadium Club did a great job with their photos. There's a photo of John Starks dunking over two Chicago Bulls. I believe one might even be MJ, and the other, I believe, is Scottie Pippen.
Yep.
You know, and it won a Knicks playoff game for them, basically. And it's a great photo of the dunk.
So I believe your compatriot Logan is urging you to say something about tomorrow night, if I'm not wrong, if I'm reading between the lines.
I mean, he might. So we record NASCAR radio usually Wednesday, and then we put it out on Friday. So we'll be talking tomorrow and publishing that episode on Friday.
Awesome. So this is the end of episode 183. 184 will be Saturday at 11 real time, 10 Central. I don't know if anybody listens in the mountains, but probably 8 a.m. in the West Coast. And October 1st, again, Hobby Hotline will be shifting Saturdays over to Bench Clear Media, so enjoy it there on the YouTube. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Appreciate it. Pleasure to actually be on air with Jason for the first time and see some new faces in the chat. What do you got? You all right, Rich? You got your glasses on, your car started?
Hey, I got to
Ready to go.
It's time for me to get home.
All right,
I got this wonderful dog. Well, one wonderful dog and Charlie.
I got you. All right, chaps. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Drive safe. Be safe out there on the road, Jason. Take care. Bye.